Dieselgate is something that I thought we kind of left in the past, but apparently not. As a matter of fact, now it's time for Dieselgate 2. I know it sounds like a cool sequel, but it's not at all. As a matter of fact, I'm not really sure if it's a sequel per se. It's more like one of those, remember they had like a DVDs with the bonus footage? So I think this is kind of a bonus footage that's going on. There are quite a few different stories here and there that are popping up. Another one popped up last week and this week. So I'm going to tell you all about what's going on. So if you thought that this is kind of done and over with, it is not. And I'm happy about that. I'll tell you all about it coming up next. Taking over the world, electrifying the world, E4 Electric! Welcome to E4 Electric, your number one source of unbiased electric car news. If this is your first time here, go ahead and click on that subscribe button so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, so just a quick recap if you don't know what Dieselgate is. Basically, a few years ago, a Volkswagen Group that also owns, obviously Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, and a few other brands, they decided to cheat. They decided to put the software and a little bit of hardware in their cars, and they made a lot of them. When connected to testing equipment that the way the government tests to make sure the car is not like poisoning us too much, basically it starts emitting less of poison essentially, and it was actually flying through the regulations no problem until this one pretty much amateur testers in California ended up they didn't have the right equipment, so they just ended up driving the car around and put a hose onto, I think they taped it onto the exhaust pipe and then put it in their equipment, connected to their equipment in the trunk, and then realized they wait a second, our equipment is faulty. This is ridiculous. And it turns out that it wasn't their equipment that was faulty. It was the cheating thing. So anyway, Volkswagen Group ended up being fined like over $30 billion. A bunch of people went to jail, including their CEO. And by the way, so he's been charged. This year he's been charged very recently, facing up to 10 years in prison in about 12 million US dollars fine. Now, this is maximum sentences, so probably not going to happen, but nevertheless. But however, there are tons of other things that have been going on. And so for example, Germany, in Germany, and a lot of this is going on in Germany, which I'm actually kudos to them, because these are all German prosecutors going against their own companies, Volkswagen Group, the BMWs, the Mercedes-Benzes, and so forth. So they already, Audi paid out 800 million US dollars last year in fines, and their CEO went to jail. And then also, once again in Germany, Volkswagen Group got sued for over $9 billion by investors. There's a similar lawsuit going on here in the United States, not for as much, but basically SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission here in the United States, is charging Volkswagen for the same thing, misleading the investors, because obviously their executives knew what was going on. So that kind of makes sense. But there are a couple of stories that popped up this week that I haven't covered. It does feel like a Dieselgate 2, or at least a sequel to the first one. Let me tell you about those two. Before that, a quick reminder, this video and this channel is sponsored by Byton. Check out the all-new M-Byte, the all-electric SUV, scheduled to come to the US and Europe by the end of next year. Over 50,000 reservations made around the world. You should have one as well, because it costs $0 to reserve one, about 60 seconds. So go to byton.com. I'll go to the link in the description of this video, starting at only $45,000. That's another awesome perk. So I will see you in the reservation line. Okay, so two things. One is Porsche just agreed to pay $600 million fine for basically, they weren't really part of the cheating scandal, but they were overlooking, right, turning the blind eye, I think, as they say, to the engines that were manufactured by Volkswagen Group in their Porsche vehicles. There were obviously they violated the emissions rules. So, and they didn't really specifically prove that they knew about it, but they certainly proved that they kind of didn't want to know. So that's something that happened, which so that's great, right? I mean, this is great. And don't forget, all these fines, they go into a lot of good causes, green causes. But the biggest one, and I think this is why I call the this video of Dieselgate 2 is because this is something new. This is technically has nothing to do with the original scandal. So apparently, and this is what they're being sued for, Volkswagen Group, so it's Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche, BMW, and Daimler, the parent company of Mercedes-Benz, they're being sued for getting together a few years ago and essentially blocking the development of sort of the tech, the use of emission tech in their cars. And so this is a consumer protection law and rules in Europe and the European Union is where, so the manufacturers, the automakers, or really makers of any product, they're allowed to collude together, if you will, for the lack of a better word, to make things better, to make products and services better for all of us. But it is against the law to actually do basically harm, but basically the opposite is trying to kind of roll the technology back. And that's what it looks like they did, obviously for those obvious reasons. And so they're being sued right now. BMW says that they're going to, fight this, but we'll see. The only thing that is I gotta say is that things are still going on, even though this happened many years ago. Things are still going on. There are a lot of investigations turning into actual prosecutions, and all of that process is probably going to take another 1 or 2 years. But this is a good thing, because let me remind you that all the pictures that have been showing of these brands, these are all electric cars that kind of came out of this, especially with Volkswagen Group, right? I've always said that they're trying to run away, because it's not like it's the old management that's running the company. It's the new people who came in, took over, and they're basically trying to run as fast as possible from this whole Volkswagen Group Dieselgate scandal, and they're running faster than other legacy manufacturers. I mean, I'm just about to do another story how Fiat Chrysler now has to spend $2 billion on buying green credits from Tesla, where Volkswagen Group is coming up with a bunch of their own electric cars this year, next year. They have 5 or 6 of them lined up in the next 3 years. So this is great. I mean, e-tron is already on the streets driving in Europe, and now the first deliveries are already in the United States. So a lot of good stuff has happened because of this. Because of this money has gone to pretty much developing all electric technology, and they're pushing forward. There are obviously still tons of problems within those companies. They're legacy manufacturers. They still make money on gas cars. And by the way, let's not forget about Electrify America. So this is $2 billion that was set aside from the $30 billion penalties that Volkswagen Group had to pay. And this is the company that is creating the infrastructure here in the United States. Mainly we know them for the up and coming fast charging network. There's about 160 locations in the United States, should be about 500 by the end of the year. So it's going to be a pretty good network already, especially with all these cars coming out that can take this type of charge, because you'll be able to charge up to 350 kilowatts at those, right? They've also got a few other projects going on. I just reported from here in Sacramento, the Gig Car Share, the largest all-electric car sharing fleet that just launched last week here. Also pretty much sponsored by Electrify America with cooperation with AAA. So I have to say there's a lot of good things that are coming out of this, and this Dieselgate was kind of a blessing in disguise, if you will, because it's kind of pushed all these legacy manufacturers, especially the Volkswagen Group, kind of forward, creating all these technologies and running away in the opposite direction from all of this. So I'm sad, obviously, but I'm excited that things are turning around. I'm excited that these companies are still being punished and people are still being investigated, and hopefully all of this is going to cut out all of this kind of BS that if there was any planned to fight the turn and to conversion into electric car technology that's coming up in the next few years. Don't forget to get on our VIP list, by the way, at e4electric.com/VIP. That's free. And of course, thank you to all my Patreons for contributing to this channel. And of course, that's the only way to watch this videos live. All right, let me know how you feel about this, and let me know what you think should happen moving forward with these brands. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.